The Radio Forest Podcast.
This is Dan.
Dan, it's Forrest. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Elton Dan and the Rocket Band coming back to Boise. Now, you've been through here, right?
It was last year, and it was absolute blast.
Nice. Now, I see you've got some dates in the Pacific Northwest. Where are you located and stationed out of, basically?
We're based out of Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, no way. Yeah, I saw that you, what show was it that you saw at Arrowhead? It wasn't Elton, was it? Wasn't it a different one?
I saw Paul McCartney there, one of my favorite, other than Elton, probably my favorite all-time show I've ever seen.
What year was this, and was this packed?
It was packed. It was probably 20 years ago, and it was so incredible that he played the next night in St. Louis, and I actually got in the car the next morning and drove to St. Louis and got a scalp ticket.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Now tell me about the first time you saw Elton. So Elton Dan and the Rocket Band, it's a tribute to Elton John. He's coming to the Egyptian Theater here in Boise. So yeah, tell me about the first time you saw Elton live.
First time was at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, and it was, probably all 20 years ago as well. And it was just, he's always been just the most awesome to me piano player and musician, on the planet. And so I've always played piano, and he was the guy that I tried to emulate.
Now, were you already like a pretty big fan going to see him? Or was it like, oh yeah, I like Elton John, let's go see the show? Or was it, I have to go see Elton, this is my chance?
It was more like I have to go see him. I played classical music as a kid, piano, and then around 15, it wasn't cool. So what was cool was rock and roll, and Elton was the guy that I just loved the music, those early albums of his, and so that was my big influence.
And you started playing piano at 10, so how did you get into Elton? Was it immediate because he also played piano and he made it cool, or were you into something first and then you transitioned and kind of caught up to Elton?
You hit it right on the head. He played piano, and I thought he made it cool, and the songs, I remember a Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album was just so incredible. I was blown away by that. I listened to it so many times, I think I burned it out.
What got you into the piano, though? Was it someone in your house musically inclined? Was it just something you gravitated towards? Did you have a teacher?
Yeah, it was my dad was a piano player, classical piano, and so we always had music in the house, and he played piano. Good buddy of mine growing up was a classical piano player. I played classical piano, but again, it just after you get in your teenage years, for me anyway, it wasn't cool.
How was he with kind of going more rock and roll, since he's a classical piano guy, or did he have more of an open mind, like the piano's the piano, you can play jazz, you can play rock?
He was totally open. Matter of fact, there was hardly, when I grew up in Southern California and I started playing in bands at 15, 16, he hardly ever missed a gig. He was always there for me.
When do you start performing Elton John songs publicly?
The tribute thing kind of came on the scene about 10 years ago, and I was a bit reluctant. I'd always played Elton John music, in different bands. I played on cruise ships, and I always get requests to play Elton because it was obvious that was my favorite. And I was kind of reluctant to do the tribute thing, thinking, there's only one Elton, there's only ever going to be one Elton, and I didn't want to be disrespectful to my idol and somebody that was still performing. And so I got talked into doing a show about 8.5 years ago, and I've never looked back. It's been the most enjoyable musical experiences of my life.
Some of these tribute groups, it's like A, a great show, and B, like the closest thing we're going to get coming through this town at this time. So my attitude, it's changed, though. Have you gone through the same thing?
Absolutely. And, I think some of the tribute bands that I've seen try to actually be the artist, be the person, and I don't fake a British accent. I don't, like I said, there's only one Elton John, but what I do is try to, present his music as best that we can. We have an incredible, talented band. We play a lot, and we love the music, and I think it shows. So people, I think, are there, they get that Elton experience, but we're not trying to be the Elton John.
Tell me about these cruise ships. I'm super interested on these. A lot of people get their starts there, musicians, comedians. How long did you do that, and did you enjoy it, or is that not something you can make a career out of? Is it too much?
You could definitely make a career out of it. It was a great time. I mean, I would go off for anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, but I played every single day. Played in the lounge and played in a trio usually, and but got to see the entire Caribbean and South America, and it was a wonderful time. But it was also you're away from home. And I just came to a point where enough was enough. I enjoyed it and came back to land base and then started the Elton thing, and I've never looked back.
you've got to run into people that are like, I'm on vacation, I'm letting loose. This dude's cute. I'm going in after him on this cruise ship. Like it's like a traveling Vegas. Does that happen? It's got to, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, you basically get 2,300 new people every week wanting to have the time of their life, and so you can do the same stick that you did the week before, and it's all new to them. So yeah, it's great.
So what makes you decide to stop doing that?
I think mostly just being away from my friends and family in Kansas City, and it was just I had kind of one of these moments sitting off the beach in Roatan, and on a Thursday we played there. That's where the cruise ship parked every Thursday, and I just sat up and said, I think I've done enough here, and it's time for me to get back to Kansas City and see what the next chapter in my life is.
Now, when it comes to basketball, are you a KU or a K-State fan?
Neither. I would say I'm an MU because I'm on the Missouri side. Even though we're on the border,
no,
I'm all Missouri.
How dare you?
I know.
What about football then? Are you still Mizzou?
Mizzou, absolutely. And Missouri State too. I'm from Southern California. I actually got a full scholarship out to Missouri State. I was a field goal kicker, believe it or not.
No way.
Yep.
Do you go watch the Chiefs then? Is the Chiefs your team? Because, Kansas City, the last couple, it seems like since I've left, every sports team's just been doing phenomenal. Even, Sporting Kansas City on the Kansas side. But you've got the Chiefs and the Royals have had some great years the last couple of years.
Yeah, especially the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and the team. And this Super Bowl was just absolutely incredible. It lit up the city. And yeah, I love the Chiefs. I try to catch one game, 2 games, maybe a year. It's fun to watch it from home with your friends as well. It's a little easier than trying to park in that crazy madhouse.
Now, let me jump back again real quick to a question we were into. So a friend asked you to perform some Elton songs, and you said you never really looked back. So was that just you by yourself, and then eventually you're like, I need some more solid musicians to make this more of a band? Was the first performance just you, and then you built the band? How did you end up with the musicians that you have now touring with you?
No, he actually was in a band and wanted me to be the Elton person for the band. And then when I agreed to do a show, it was a 7-piece band as well. And it took off, and I loved it. And we've kind of evolved, and the band has got much better. I mean, 3 of the musicians in the band all have their music degrees. 2 of them from University of Kansas City Music Conservatory. And they're just phenomenal. Our keyboard player from New York, Dean Christopher, is just an absolute beast. But they all love Elton John music. And our guitar player, David, he looks like Davy Johnstone. He went to Berklee School of Music in Boston. He's an absolute master on the guitar. And so I'm just very, very blessed that I've got people that share the same passion that I do for the Elton John music.
I was lucky enough to talk to Davey, and he just had the coolest stories. I wanted to know what celebrities would come and see him. And he basically was like anybody and everybody. And it's not just like American, movie stars. It's like British royalty would not demand, but be like, I would love a performance from you. And he's like, you look out and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these people.
Yeah, he's something. I met him in Tampa when he played with Elton there. He was at the pool, and a buddy of mine called and said, hey, I think Davy Johnson's sitting over here at the pool. So I rushed down from my room, and I went over and introduced myself and got a picture with him, and we chatted. And he was just a super kind person.
He kind of gets overlooked because he's a fantastic guitar player. But when you think of Elton John, you don't think of guitar. And then once you are aware of him and you listen to the songs more, you're like, these aren't just piano songs. Some of them are really guitar-based with Elton in there.
You are so correct. I mean, he what I would call him is, there's those signature songs that are influenced with guitar, like, Saturday Night's All Right. Pinball Wizard has those big power guitar chords. But I would consider him like the icing on the cake. If you listen, like you said, he's playing so many tasteful counter melodies to Elton's piano. It is absolutely, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I think of his mandolin playing on songs like Mona Lisa's Manhatters, the banjo that he plays on Honky Cat. I mean, he is just an overall string genius.
Now, at the time that you met him at the pool, were you doing the Elton John band? So I guess my question is, do you think Elton's aware of Elton Dan and the Rocket Band?
I think so. I'd actually had performed at the Arcada Theater the night before in Chicago, and it was Elton John's birthday. And so the next night was down in Tampa, and I flew down there for the show on Sunday, and I'd had the whole audience actually sing Happy Birthday to Elton. And we did this last week, by the way, at the Granada Theater in Lawrence, Kansas. You're probably familiar with that.
Oh, yeah, lots of shows there.
Oh, yeah. And so I mentioned that to him, but what's even more incredible is shortly after that, David Furnish, Elton's partner, was in Kansas City promoting Elton John's eyeglass wear at Sam's Club. And I got a phone call, and they said, hey, David Furnish is in town, and he would like to meet you, and we understand you do an Elton John tribute band. And I thought it was kind of a fake call. And as I got talking to this person, I knew it was legit. And so I immediately got ready, and I asked it, could I put on my Elton garb? And they said, oh, that would be great. And I went up to Sam's Club here in Kansas City at Independence, and I'll be darned, David shows up, and I got to spend 20, 30 minutes with him, and we chatted, and he's just a super, super person. And I showed him the video that we had done singing Happy Birthday to Elton. And he actually got emotional about it, and he got my phone number. We did selfies together, and he's now follows me around a little bit on Instagram and always is liking things. And it was a great, great moment for me.
So how flamboyant do you get on stage with the outfits? Because Elton is, I mean, everything from the duck costume to the giant feathers to the elaborate glasses that cost more than some of our houses. How much of that do you have to emulate, or can you just be like not a dueling piano, but you know what I mean? Like you sort of can't just, well, there's a guy playing Elton John songs. You said you put on your garb. So how into it and how accurate do you get?
Extremely accurate and 100% in. Now, I'm not doing the duck suit. That's the one I stay away from.
Oh, that's my favorite. In the Dodger Stadium, you know,
I think it would be hard to walk around in that. But, I have the replication Gucci glasses that he has are actual Gucci glasses, the same as he has. All of my costumes and jackets are made with the Swarovski crystals that a lady, Marilyn Sims, makes them. She works with Donnie and Marie Osmond out of Vegas. She makes those in full replicas of Elton John's outfits. Shoes are all the same, the Gucci shoes. I've got all that. I probably have 25 pair of glasses. I shudder to think of what I've spent on all this stuff, but it's the real deal.
So when you travel, talk about hauling this stuff. So I'm going to talk about some other big bands, like somebody like Elton, like in Davey. They'll have these road cases where all their guitars sit in safely and secure, and they strap them down on wheels. They roll them into the venue. Axl Rose has one like just for scarves. So do you have to have road cases for these outfits that hang up on hangers, or are some of these larger? How do you transport? It's more than a regular band, because you've got the regular full band. You've got keyboards, guitars, singing, drums, and you and a piano. How do you haul the outfits?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I actually have custom road cases that are on wheels, casters, and we typically put my piano in the trailer first, which is a piano shell, right? So it rolls up in wheels, and then next goes the wardrobe, and there are two 6 foot by probably, I'm guessing, 3 feet, and they open up. So you've got two sides that have maybe a dozen jackets, shirts, and so forth on each side. I have two of those, and those go in the trailer, and they travel everywhere we go.
Now, guitars, when you're moving around with the band, you got different humidity and elevations. The tunings can change drastically. Sometimes we even crack guitars if they go too far. How often do you have to tune a piano? I mean, I guess you're checking that thing every day, right? And are there different tuned pianos? You just have one?
Again, it's a great question, and I'll let you in on a little secret is that it's really not a real piano. And even Elton John, when he plays his piano, it's all MIDI. Yeah. Because if you'll notice, he plays different piano sounds. Like, for instance, on Daniel, it'll be an electric piano sound. When he plays Lucy in the Sky, he's got kind of a string, kind of layered piano. But there's a keyboard tech for Elton that sits backstage with a computer that he actually can program or enhance the sounds to make those pianos change. What I use is a electric piano, a stage piano, so you never have to tune it. It's a digital keyboard, but it has multiple different piano styles and takes. Electric pianos, different types of bright pianos, honky pianos, and that's the same with most people that perform with pianos are not using an actual piano because of what you said. It would be so difficult to keep them tuned, and the damage and traveling around the country, it's virtually impossible unless you rent a piano from each individual place. But again, with Elton's music, we do such a wide variety. We do those 7 iconic albums, and I need different piano sounds for different songs.
So on the cruise ship, then that's got to be digital too, because with the humidity in the ocean, there's just no way, right? So it has to be the same type of thing?
Absolutely. It goes into a piano facade. We call them shells. It's kind of a case, a wooden case, and you slide the electric keyboard into the bed there in the front. And so many people go, how do you haul that piano around everywhere? Well, it's the shell only weighs 75 pounds. The electric piano weighs 75 pounds. So but it looks like one.
You're pulling back the curtain. I wonder if some of these these dueling piano bars I've been to, I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's probably not 2 pianos, right? I mean,
no, it's not. They typically put most of the dueling pianos use those Casio Priva pianos. They're electric pianos, really hardy. You can beat the crap out of them. But yeah, they're all electric pianos.
Now, that's got to feel different, though, right? Because the reverberation back at your fingers when you hit a key, anybody that's played around on a keyboard versus a piano, that's a huge difference. I imagine it's like an electronic drum kit. Or are you just so used to it, you're like, they're both the same to me, but it's got to be different.
It is. I think in the last, I'd say 10 years, the technology has become so incredible on the electric pianos. The one I use is called a Nord Stage, and I cannot hardly tell the difference. And it's not plastic keys like the traditional keyboards. They're actually wood-weighted piano keys. So it feels, and the aftertouch is very similar to a piano. And it's these modern-day electric stage pianos are virtually impossible to tell the difference of the feel.
Now, what about at your house? You got to have your own piano, right? Do you have more than one? Do you have anything that's worth a ton of money? Have you moved often? Moving pianos is not easy.
Embarrassed to say, but I have 3 pianos at the house, including in my living room. I have a baby grand Yangchang that's a Korean baby grand piano that's one of the most beautiful sounding pianos I've ever played in my life. And I have electric piano in the bar area, and I have another keyboard down in the music studio piano. So I have 3 here, plus all of my electric keyboards and guitars and all that stuff. So I like to have one in about every room.
Now, a question we've been talking about here at the radio station, it's been super interesting to hear people comment on. Is there any band that you've seen before they've gotten huge? We love these stories. So people have seen some incredible performances of like mega stars before they were mega, opening for other people. So have you seen anybody before they broke huge?
I go to a friend of mine, Danny De La Reyes from the Zac Brown Band. I knew him back 25 years ago when he was playing and doing different things, and get to see him kind of evolve and tour with national acts and then hook up with the Zac Brown Band, and then they just took off. And matter of fact, I talked to him the other day, and he was down in this place in Atlanta, and it's just, I'm so proud of him, but he's one that comes to mind. One of our drummers, my past drummer here with this band, Pat Tomac, played with a band called the Rainmakers, and they're from Kansas City. You may have heard of them. But back in the late 70s and 80s, they were starting out here, and then they launched, and they were huge, like in Europe and Norway. And so I've seen a couple like that. But you're right. It's so special when you know the work that people put in and the talent to get to that next level and to see it. It's awesome.
Now, let's talk about my favorite venue in the world. And have you seen anybody perform there, or have you been there? The Bottleneck in Lawrence. I think that's the coolest little hole in the wall. I've seen some big bands in there, and they played on a Tuesday, and not everybody knew it was more of a niche band. I saw all kinds of bands. So surely you've been there then?
I've not only been there, I've played there probably a dozen times, maybe a little bit more, and including with our Elton Dan, the Rocket Band. We played there. Matter of fact, we played there last year. This year, it's the same promoter that has the Granada, and so he put us in the Granada this year, which is a little bigger room.
Yeah,
we
bigger.
were having trouble, at the Bottleneck. It's kind of small, a couple hundred people maybe. So the Granada was, I think, a little better for what we're doing. More seating and more show as opposed to, honky tonk down and dirty rock and roll club, which don't I love that too. But the Bottleneck's fantastic. It's got that ambience about it.
Yeah, I've seen probably like 15 or 20 different bands there, but I remember seeing Hank Williams III because you said honky tonk, and he's got the stand-up bass, and it just was rowdy. People were doing coke in the pit, and they're selling PBR in cans. It's like one of my favorite venues of all time. Have you had a chance then to catch other acts as you're touring across the U.S.? Like I've said, you've got some Seattle and I think Portland. You've got some Pacific Northwest dates going on right now. So do you ever get a chance to check out other shows while you're touring? You get an off night or an extra day?
Very rarely, but you mentioned that. We played in Texas a few months ago, and we had a night off. And at the club we were playing the following night in San Antonio, it was Tomball. It was Tomball, Texas. There was a Rolling Stones tribute band from England, and so we went and watched them, and they were fantastic. We got to hang out with them afterwards, and we played the next night. But if we ever get a night off where we get to the hotel in time to go see a show and there's someone local, we absolutely do it. But the reality is, this tour we play 17 shows in 20 days in 5 states, and we don't have much time off for anything.
Yeah. Well, it's Elton Dan and the Rocket Band. They're coming through Boise, Idaho, Tuesday, April 25th at the Egyptian Theater. Doors at 7, shows at 8. Dan, hey, thank you for the talk today. We can't wait to see the show, man.
Great. I look forward to it and look forward to meeting you, and thank you so much.
Doors at 7,